pretty low-key up to that point until it was an amazing performance and a fantastic result. He's trying to keep a lid on it, but it's not just that game and that win against Liverpool, although that one is probably the biggest of their results. It's 3 wins and 4 for them now. And we've been saying for a while the performances have been better than the results, but if you don't get the results, then that's why you're down at that end of the table. Now they're putting the results onto their performances.
And I'm quite pleased for Graham Potter because the way he sets his teams up, they do defend brilliantly well, and they now have they've got an offensive quartet of players that can really cause problems, and we saw that with their numbers yesterday against Liverpool. But what's good about them now getting the results is that he doesn't continually get compared to the fact that with Chris Hughton's Brighton being down there, they're still down there. Whereas, you know, you can look at someone like Sheffield United, and with Sheffield United, they've had 8 1-0 draws. They're still in games, but when you lose, you lose. So people will then point to the fact that, well, look where you are. But this is testament to how well they've done, the fact that they've stuck to what they're doing. And you go to Liverpool, and people can say whatever they want about Liverpool. I thought that there was 2 chances, especially for Mo Salah on another day, probably takes them. It's a whole different story.
Right, you know that chance. I was wondering when I saw it. There's a striker, both of you strikers. Is that a tired, the way he slashes at it, is that a tired mind? Because I thought he would slot it into the bottom corner, and he tries to put it into the roof of the net.
Which one are you talking, the second, the right-footed one that went over the bar?
The one that goes over the bar,
when you look at it, in every miss that I see from a striker of that calibre, and they're in that area of the pitch, in the area, I always think, well, why not take that with your right foot? You can just help it on its waist. Coming across, it's a much more difficult shot to try and execute. And it's easier to lean back doing that one, rather than if it's coming across on the right foot, you can lean into it and whip it in. And the same with the first one, it just felt like a tired finish. He just tried to hook it over there.
Then you look at the one the other day, the ball that Shaqiri played to Mo Salah, and that was one of the best goals I've seen this season. The touch and the finish. I think the difference this year as well is they're not putting away their chances, are they? We're used to Liverpool being so ruthless in front of goal, and you are going to miss. I mean, I'd love to say I'd scored every single chance I've ever had. I'm sure he did.
I scored nearly.
But it doesn't happen. It's good they're getting in those positions, but I'm sure it's frustrating that they keep missing. But he's a fantastic player.
Especially when you're up against a Brighton side that, as Righty was saying, are going to limit the number of chances that you have. That if you're not being clinical, that's where it's going to hurt you. And they've shown Liverpool that they don't play well against teams that play the way that Brighton do. And Brighton probably have more quality in terms of their attack as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think with someone like Mo Salah, you usually cannot give him an opportunity inside the box. And we saw that in the last game. And obviously last night he missed a couple of opportunities. But I do think it's a positive thing that Liverpool are getting in those positions. But obviously with Mane and Firmino, we're used to them also scoring. Not so much Firmino, actually. He's often come under criticism because he doesn't score as many goals. But he does work hard for the team, and you need that. But obviously Liverpool and their injuries they've had, and not to keep bringing it up, but it's coming to a fruition now where they're really struggling because of injuries. And it happens to every team. But someone like Jota, not just Van Dijk, but Jota came there from Wolves and has been fantastic. So many injuries, and players like Shaqiri and stuff like that just not at the same level for me as the 3 they have.
Yeah, it was a combination of factors, wasn't it? It was the fact that Brighton did play incredibly well and have been playing consistently well over the last sort of few weeks. But for Liverpool, although there seemed to be a mini sort of revival over a couple of games, it feels as though they've dropped back into a performance that looked lacking in energy, and that's really what you were picking up on with Salah.
Yeah, I think they were a tired side. I really do. I think that we know all about their mentality, but you can't fight fatigue in some respects, and I think that not only were they playing like a tired side, but mentally they look like a tired side. When you talk about the lack of attempts on goal, that's not the Liverpool we've come to know and love. Normally they're relentless all the way to the end, but they just seem to run out of creativity. They seem to just run out of an idea of a way through a Brighton side that packed the penalty box and said, come on, break us down. And I think if they're going to have any chance against City, they're going to have to find that. I mean, Mane will give them that energy. They were missing Mane.
If
he's fit, exactly. And that's a big if, because without him, I give them no chance, I have to admit. But also, I'm sure it's been said before, but they're, as a side, they're all over the place. They've got a rookie in goal, they've got midfielders at centre-half, they've got players in midfield who otherwise wouldn't play there. But they've had so much bad fortune this season. Players out with COVID. Thiago, who signed and looked like he was going to be the answer to take them to the next level, wasn't fit for a while. They've had all sorts of things happening to them. The fact that they're even in the title race is is to their credit in many respects, because when you consider what they've had, they shouldn't even be there.
You know what, Kels, I think you have to look, when you talk about mental and physical tiredness, is that when Liverpool chased down City to the 1 point, unbelievable mental and physical output. Same with when they won it. To stay in front of everybody like they did and obliterate everybody, unbelievable. All with no real injuries. Hardly any injuries to any of their team. And if it wasn't for a duration of time where it's going to hurt them. And I think that with what they've done now, what Leanne said about the injuries that they've had, and the backup players in Origi, in Shaqiri, even like Ox is not really getting in and making the impact that I suppose Jurgen Klopp wants. And then you get into a situation where you play a Brighton team that are unbelievably well organised, and they've got forwards who can score, and then you miss a couple of chances. That starts weighing on you because you start thinking, oh my gosh, we can't score. We don't seem to be able to keep clean sheets because Darren, they've got midfielders at the centre half.
But right, the point I'd like to make as well, from a player's perspective, I play for managers that are relentless, physically, psychologically, demanding so much. And I think what we're seeing now, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but from what I see and from being a player, we're seeing a build-up of what, not the games this year, I think it's been 3 years of the intensity that they demand in training and in games. And that's why I think there's been so many injuries. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but from my experience of playing, that's what I see. And that's why they're so fatigued, because playing that high press that they do, it's not an easy thing to do, and the players are going to be feeling it.
Yeah, and Van Dijk aside, because that was the challenge from Jordan Pickford, there have been a lot of those muscle injuries that are made, or knee injuries that there seem to be with the players. But you can counteract that by rotating the players. The problem is, if you've got your 3 main centre-backs out, then you can't really rest the full-backs. Then you've taken 2 experienced midfielders out, and then Fabinho gets injured, and then Jordan Henderson's there with a young central defender. You've lost players from midfield. So then James Milner plays 4 games in 10 days at 35 years of age. And then your goalkeeper goes sick. Sadio Mane's injured. Jota's injured. So you can't rotate the front players.
I wouldn't want to be the guy who's got Alisson's stick note.
Honestly, could you imagine having to explain Jurgen?
Just that text. Putting the voice on when somebody goes,
you know something, Kels?
Well.
You know the thing about that, Kels, is when you catalogue it like that, you have to look at it and you think to yourself, especially, you have to throw in no pre-season, no proper pre-season, the way they train.
Which is the same for everyone.
It's the same for everyone, but the fact is that Liverpool play how they train. So that's going to be, it's going to put fatigue on you, like Leanne's saying. You can't.
And I don't think they're actually training as much now either.
They've got to ease off a little bit because obviously you don't want to get more injuries. But when you do catalogue it like that, you cannot help but feel like, wow, at this stage, you can totally understand the players' confidence and the fatigue easing in. You can see it because they'll have to find something from their bootstraps to get it going now, because City are really in a groove now.
I wonder what on earth they're doing there, because with all of that on their plate, to even be in with a chance of reducing that gap, it is to their immense credit. And listen, it will be a big ask. I think there's 2 key things.
Randy Robertson said they're not in the title race as things stand.
Oh, they all say they're not in the title race.
But 7
they
points
need
off
to take a bit of pressure off.
10 points clear. They go, no, we're just...
they have to take the
same thing.
You have to take the pressure off.
What I do think, though, is that a lot of the journalists who cover Liverpool cover it with the understanding of what's going on. It's not knee-jerk at the moment. I think people got that insight into what's going on. I know a lot of people say, oh, you can't keep banging on about Van Dijk, but the reason why it's important to keep mentioning Van Dijk is that when he plays, he's got ability, a little bit like Diaz at Manchester City, to hit diagonal balls that can find players in advanced positions, shift sides in the bottom half of the table out of position. He has that ability that other defenders just don't have. And I think that's a key reason why they're struggling. Southampton, Burnley, Brighton away from home. You know, there are so many teams down there, Fulham, they struggle to beat as well, that they can't seem to get in behind, and Van Dijk had the ability to do that. And I think it matters that they lost him, and they can, if you're a Liverpool fan, you can hark back to that, because I think they could have coped with the truncated pre-season, they could have coped with the COVID absences and whatever. What they can't cope without is Van Dijk.
I tell you, when you look at it and you feel the signing of Thiago and you feel, wow,